Alto's trading. He's been trading stocks, options, and futures for about 20 years now. And he's developed an arsenal of highly tested trading strategies, and they've remained effective regardless of the market conditions. So you're about to see why Jeff is one of our most requested speakers. And he's giving us something new today about how to accurately predict market direction, identifying high probability buy areas and uptrends, finding high probability sell areas and downtrends, and the strategy for any market time frame and direction. So I am not going to take up any of his time. Jeff, are you good to go here?
I am good to go. How are you guys?
We're doing great. We're doing great. Thanks for coming on. We'll make sure that you're able to share your screen and everything's working before we sign off.
All right. Let me get my screen up here.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to see it.
We do, indeed. Looks great.
Outstanding.
Off to a good start. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Take it away, Jeff.
It's only getting better from here. So, all right. Well, thanks for having me on. It's always a thrill to be here. And I do have a lot to cover, so I'm gonna jump right into it. But I want to welcome everybody. Looks like we have a really great crowd on today, so that's always exciting to see. I love to share what I have here today, which is actually something relatively new that I haven't shared outside of our inner circle trading community a whole lot up until about a month ago. So for those of you who are new to our group, then I'm excited to share this with you. And what it is, it's what I've deemed the slingshot setup. And what it does is it helps us to buy low and sell high in volatile markets. So it couldn't be better timing, right? We're in some very unique market conditions, really unique market environments. It can sometimes be difficult to navigate. So I'm going to help you guys get through that here today. Throw up our disclaimer real quick. We all know that trading securities and options does involve risk. And prior to buying or selling options, an investor must receive a copy of characteristics and risks of standardized options. Of course, we do need a broker to trade securities and options and must meet suitability requirements. I will be going over some actual trade examples from my own personal trading account as well as my hedge fund. But just know that we don't guarantee that anyone will mirror the performance of any of the figures that we share today together. All right, so we're going to start out by looking at some examples of some familiar faces, at least probably familiar to a lot of you out there. And these are, if you recognize some or all of these, you'll know that they're all famous investors and traders. And they all have a lot in common that have led to their success. There's one in particular thing in common that you might not guess that these guys share. And that's that they've all bought high and sold low. In other words, they've all made bad investment or trading decisions in their careers. And most people probably don't consider that when they look at their overall success, but they make mistakes too. And why is that? It's because they're human. So we're going to start out today by talking about why the markets are so difficult to trade and why we make mistakes as traders and investors. And it really boils down to psychology, human psychology. And so this is a psychology curve that you may have seen at some point in your trading or investing career. But unfortunately, this is a common sort of pathway that we all go down as we place a trade or make an investment. And generally that starts on the left side of the curve here where you're optimistic, right? Nobody enters a trade or invests their money with the anticipation that they're not going to do well. So we start out optimistic, enthusiastic, exuberant, even euphoric. And we reach a point where we're actually entering a trade where there's a fairly high level of financial risk. So this is where that whole greed mentality often comes in. And then at any point in time when markets become unstable or volatile, or a trade or investment moves against us temporarily, that can quickly transition into anxiety, denial, fear. And then what ends up happening is we often end up selling when it's really the best time to be buying or investing or entering a trade. And then unfortunately, because of the way that our minds work, we repeat this cycle over and over again. And this is really the true underlying reason that 90% plus of investors and traders don't make it in the long run. So what we're going to do today is we're going to solve that problem for you. So before we do that, let's consider some of the kind of underlying fundamentals of how psychology affects our trading decisions. Of course, anytime we enter a directional trade, our goal is to buy low and sell high. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, this does go against our human instinct, and it's why traders like Warren Buffett and Carl Icahn and some of the other faces you saw just a minute ago have made the same mistakes that we all make as retail traders and investors. Now, they're fortunately able to overcome a lot of those because they're very well capitalized. They have a lot of experience, but they also use some of these tricks and tactics I'm gonna share with you guys today to overcome those. But unfortunately, with most retail traders and investors, when a security is going down, we end up selling it. So it's that panic and fear component of the psychology curve that we just looked at. And then when the security's already gone up, we buy it. So we buy it too late. And then when we panic when the price is falling because we're afraid of losing money, right? None of us want to lose money. It is an inevitable aspect of trading and investing, but overall we want to come out ahead. And then we buy when it's rising because we're afraid of missing out. It's that whole FOMO mentality. And in fact, that's a lot of what's going on in the market right now. And we're gonna hone in on that here in just a minute. And then to compound these problems, we're wired to repeatedly make this same mistake over and over. So we buy high and sell low because that's what our emotions tell us to do. And of course, without a solid trading plan, we're vulnerable to our emotions. And even when you do have a solid trading plan, all too many of us will abandon that and let our emotions take over. So if you are lacking a strategy that can identify momentum shifts or trends in markets, meaning you don't know when to get in or buy low or get out and sell high, this can pose a major problem for inexperienced traders and investors. And again, this is a problem we're going to solve today on our session. I'm going to give you a really solid trading setup that works incredibly well and helps overcome these psychological drawbacks to trading. So we're going to turn the tables, and instead of being, that old Warren Buffett adage, being fearful when others are greedy, we're going to turn the table and be greedy when others are fearful, and we're going to be cautious and sell when there's actually a high level of financial risk. Okay, so what this is it's a contrarian approach to the markets. So regardless of what market you trade, what time frame you trade in, this is applicable, and it's highly important for you to be successful in the long run. So we're going to turn the tables, and we're going to do the opposite of what most losing traders and investors do. So what I'm going to give you guys today to make it easier for you, especially in these volatile market conditions, is I'm going to reveal my slingshot trade, and this setup has worked 100% of the time, going back all the way to the beginning of the stock market. All right, and that's a bold claim, but I'm going to back it up in our session today, and you'll see it's true. We'll show you how to identify the setup, how to trade the setup, how to profit from the setup, how to get in near the bottom and out near the top. And I won't claim that you can get in right at the bottom or right at the top, but I'll show you this slingshot setup that gets you really darn close. And then I'll show you how to apply this setup to any market in any time frame. I'll show you how to eliminate the majority of your losing trades. We'll look at some trade examples together to back up the learning. And then if you stick with me to the end, I'll show you how you can copy my success and get my trade signals I use to make a living in the markets. So I'm really excited for everybody that's on today to have that opportunity. So let's start out by imagining if you could buy low and sell high without any guesswork, right? That's really every trader and investor's dream. And in fact, there is one volatility study that's made this possible since the beginning of the markets. And I'm going to share it with you here in a minute. And the good news is it's available for free on any retail trading platform. And what I've developed using this volatility study is a unique setup called the Slingshot Trade. And again, it's allowed traders to buy low and sell high with 100% accuracy. Now, this setup doesn't occur all the time. It does only occur in certain market conditions. And we're going to look at that, and I'm going to help you identify those. But if you trade this in the right market conditions, it works. It's worked 100% of the time going back to the dawn of the stock market. And I'm going to show you how to do that, okay? And there's no guesswork involved here. It's very clear. It also warns of potential market sell-offs. So again, another fear of all of ours as traders and investors, probably our biggest fear is the unknown, right? The market crash, the black swan event. It's at the top of all of our minds this year with the Corona crash, right? So probably most of us on this session today experienced that back in February and March. And I'll show you how I navigated that and made a lot of money during the crash. So once the bands of this volatility study can't be stretched any further, they must bounce back. And that's why this slingshot setup works with such astounding accuracy. It's almost an inevitable occurrence in the markets. If, really the markets would not exist if this didn't play out as it does. And this rubber band effect makes it possible to accurately identify tops and bottoms in the market if you use it correctly. All right, so let's look at the recent Corona crash. This is a daily chart of the S&P 500 index, the SPX. And you can see that if we were in a live room together, I can imagine a lot of people in the room kind of cringing and putting their heads down as they look at this chart, because it was a painful, painful time, right? We topped out at all-time highs on the S&P back in February, only to lose over 30% in market value within a couple of weeks. It was the steepest, most dramatic sell-off we've ever seen in the history of the market, all right? And so when we're in this unprecedented bull run that we've been in over the past decade, this is that whole, think back to that psychology curve we just looked at, that whole overly exuberant, overly optimistic, euphoric crowd who's getting in with the fear of missing out. And as the market is posting all-time highs, the risk is actually getting very high of a sell-off. And it doesn't take a whole lot to create a sell-off, but certainly we had a very, very unique and significant catalyst with COVID-19 to drive the markets lower. So when most traders are buying with fear of missing out, this is actually when we should be selling. And as we get into the slingshot setup, it actually told us to sell when other people were buying. Okay, and this is where traders get trapped. The market tanks, and instead of going along with the crowd, 90% plus of other traders and investors who are panicking and selling, we're going to come in and buy when most traders are selling. And so this is going to allow us to sell high and buy low. And now comes the what I call the trader's dilemma, the biggest issue we face once we get into a profitable trade. When do we get out? None of us have a crystal ball. We don't know how far the market's going to go. But with the slingshot setup, it very clearly tells us to get out when most traders are buying. All right, so this is basically what it looks like. And we're going to take a closer look here about how this works with the indicator. So a little bit of background on myself before we get into that. For those of you who have not attended any of my previous educational events, I am the Chief Investment Strategist at Altos Trading, as Pat mentioned, and I do have 20 years of experience trading the stock, options, and futures markets. I started when I was 8 years old, and I also received professional training at Morgan Stanley. I'm, again, the founder and Chief Investment Strategist at Altos Trading. We currently have over 30,000 members in over 100 countries across the globe. We're constantly growing year to year, and we're excited to bring in new members today on our session. I'm also a hedge fund manager at Altos Capital, and I'll share a little bit about that with you today. But please be clear, this is not any sort of an endorsement or invitation to get into my hedge fund. I'm actually not accepting any clients into the hedge fund from the session today, but I'm going to share some of the tactics that I use in my hedge fund to be successful. And then again, if you stick with us to the end, I'm going to show you our very cool and unique trade trend signal software. I'm also the founder and creator of that. And we'll look at how to use that in conjunction with the slingshot setup. So by the end of our session, you're going to get a lot out of our session today, but ultimately you're going to discover the one trade setup that's produced massive returns going back to the beginning of the stock market. And as I mentioned, it's so reliable, it's worked 100% of the time. And we're going to look at some of the worst case scenarios in the market going back over 20 years today on our session that will verify that. And it really hasn't failed once, including in the recent Corona crash, as I'll show you here in a minute. And it happens over and over again with astounding predictability if you know how to trade it. So whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, this is really must-have information for today's markets. Again, it couldn't be any more relevant than it is in the current market environment. So you're going to discover why volatility is one of the only leading indicators of market direction. And I'll show you how to identify when markets may be vulnerable to a sell-off. And I promise once you get this down, and it's very easy, you'll have it down by the end of the hour, it's going to completely turn your trading around. And then I'll also show you how to identify when the market is likely to go up and how to determine exactly how far the market is likely to go up, as I showed you there with the Corona crash. That's the whole trader's dilemma that the slingshot setup solves for us. And then I'll show you how to get your hands on a tool that will change your trading forever. So stick with us to the end. So let's start out by imagining a slingshot. This is the setup we're all on today to learn about, right? So we can imagine that as you pull a slingshot back, the muscle energy from your arm is transferred to elastic energy in the bands of the slingshot, right? So whether we've ever used a slingshot at some point in the past, I know I have, we get raccoons and things eating our cat food out back. So I use one once in a while. But if you haven't, I'm sure you can imagine that once you release the slingshot, the elastic energy is transferred to the stone as energy of motion. And this is what's referred to in physics as kinetic energy. And it's important because kinetic energy can be applied to the markets as supply and demand. So supply for selling pressure and demand for buying pressure. And then ultimately what we want, the kind of key takeaway or concept that we need to understand before we get into the slingshot setup is that once the bands become overstretched, just like with a slingshot, it gives us a buy signal and we can enter the market with high confidence that prices will go up to the initial resting point of the band, right? So it's just like a slingshot. You can only pull the band back so far before it bounces back. And this is what happens in the market with supply and demand. And really to get even more nuanced, it's really fear and greed that are driving supply and demand at the base of everything that really moves prices in the markets. All right, so let's look at how to apply the slingshot effect to the markets. So I mentioned volatility is really one of the only forward-looking predictive indicators in the market. And the volatility bands that we're going to use tell us when prices move too far away from the mean or the average and is likely to reverse direction. And so the bands that we use for this study are the Bollinger Bands. So put a quick X in the chat box if you guys have heard or used the Bollinger Bands. Probably a lot of you out there. Yep, Mike, Mark, Jane. Yep, a lot of people have used the Bollinger Bands. And they're one of the few indicators out of the many, many dozens of indicators on our retail trading platforms that really can provide some value when used correctly. Now, there's a lot of incorrect way to use these, and we're going to weed those out today together so you're not doing something you shouldn't be doing. And we'll look at really the best way to use these. But it is an incredible indicator in terms of pinpointing turning points in a security because what it does is it allows us to stay on the right side of volatility. So here's an example. I've got the Bollinger Bands plotted in the middle of your screen there, and you can see where price starts to hug this lower band, right? This is what's referred to as a volatility breakout. So we're moving away from the mean or the moving average, which is the center line, and we're starting to follow the lower band. All right, and so this is actually where a lot of people are going to buy, because if you're in the kind of a broader uptrend or bull market, a lot of traders or investors will come in and buy at these little pullbacks, but this is actually where you should be selling. And then as the sell-off accelerates, this is where you really should be buying as price rebounds back up to that initial level where the volatility breakout initiated, okay? So this is what the slingshot setup looks like, all right? And we're gonna get even more detailed on this and how to trade it and interpret it in real trading here. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Bollinger Bands, I'll just run through real quickly what they are and how they work. In order to calculate them, we take a simple moving average of the security's price. Okay, a lot of people just use moving averages. They have some value here and there, but they're really, they're a moving target, right? So it's simply an average that lags the price that shows up on your chart. Now, where these become unique and valuable is the outer band. So we take the standard deviation of the security's price, that's the average, and then, and that's basically a mathematical measurement of average variance. And then we use that to measure how spread out numbers are from an average value. So standard deviation can be calculated by taking the square root of the variance, which itself is the average of the squared difference of the mean. And then we multiply that by the standard deviation value by 2. And I'll give you my settings here in a second. And then we add and subtract that amount from each point along the SMA. And that's what produces the upper and lower band. Now, that was a lot to take in a short amount of time. Don't worry, you don't need to know that. It's more for background education. But basically, because the standard deviation is a measure of volatility, when the market becomes more volatile, the bands widen. And then when the market's less volatile, the bands contract. And we'll look at that on some charts here in a minute. But again, don't worry about any of this. This is more for background education. Here are my settings. These are actually generally the default settings on most retail trading platforms that I use with the Bollinger Band. So I use a 20-period SMA for the center line and 2 standard deviations from the mean for the outer bands. Okay, that's the standard setup that John Bollinger, who developed the bands, formulated. If yours doesn't default to that, you can change it. Now, the Bollinger Bands can be used in a number of different ways to trade the markets. So we're going to look at a few of the common ones, And then we'll look at the slingshot setup and how it compares. So one common way that the Bollinger Bands are used is to buy at the bottom band and sell at the top band. Now, the problem with this approach is that price can hug the upper or lower band for extended periods of time, as we just looked at in that chart a second ago, right? So this can work in ranging markets or low volatility markets, but then it fails massively when there's a volatility expansion like we had in February and March, okay? So for that reason, we don't use this technique. A second commonly used one is band contraction and expansion. Now, this can be a good indicator of an impending big move. So in other words, when the outer bands are very close together, we're in a low volatility environment. And inevitably, volatility will increase or expand, and the bands will diverge or move away from each other. And this can be a good indicator of that impending big move, but the problem with this approach is we don't know in which direction the move will occur. It's unpredictable. So yeah, there's some strategies out there. There's option strategies like straddles, strangles, etc. that are kind of more non-directional. You don't know which way the thing's going to go, but those are pretty complex and require a lot of extra training. And ultimately, we want to keep things simple. So we're, for that reason, not going to use the band contraction and expansion method. Now, a third commonly used method is to buy or sell at the middle band. This tactic can work very well in strong trending markets. So in other words, if you're in an uptrend, you would buy when price reverts to the mean or the middle band. But the problem with this one is that it fails in sideways ranging markets, right? And most of the time, we're in ranges in the market. So this again fails big time when market conditions are not favorable. So we've seen some, kind of pros and cons of some of these, but a lot of disadvantages of these methodologies for using the Bollinger Bands. And so what I've done is I've solved all these problems that you would encounter with the Bollinger Bands using what I call the slingshot setup. So what this is we wait for the lower band to break. And then what happens, as we looked at on that chart earlier, is that price will hug the lower band and ultimately rebound to where the breach initially occurred. And this is truly, in my 20 years of experience, the best way to use this volatility study. And we're going to use it in a very unique way to buy low and sell high in any market condition. So again, Bollinger Bands, they've been around a long time. John Bollinger developed these, I think back in like the 70s. So they've been around for like 50 years. And he initially developed them for stocks, but they really work for all securities. So I know we have a very diverse group of traders and investors on our session today. And so everything that we're going to be covering regarding the Bollinger Bands and the slingshot setup can be applied to any market, in any time frame. So with the slingshot setup, the way that we apply it is we wait for price to hug the band envelope for prolonged periods during strong trends. And then what we do is we wait for the lower band to break and we wait for a buy signal. So I'm going to get into that here in a minute. This is just the key bullet points. We then exit when price returns to the breaking point of the band. So if you can kind of gauge what I'm telling you here, this setup, the slingshot setup, tells us when to sell, when to buy, and then when to sell again. So it answers all those questions for us. All right. And this setup that I've developed occurs with astounding predictability. In fact, the major market indices have returned to the initial volatility breakout with 100% accuracy. That includes all four major corrections of 2018, the flash crash of 2015, the flash crash of 2010, the crash following the 2008 mortgage crisis when the market lost more than half its value, going back 20 years ago to the 2000 dot-com bubble, even the recent Corona crash. Every black swan event, market correction, major crash, bear market, you name it, this setup has played out exactly as we anticipate it to. All right, so let's look at some examples of this so you can get a better feel for how this looks on the chart and how to trade it. So let's use the most recent example, the one at the top of all of our minds, the Corona crash of February and March, okay? We're in this unprecedented decade-long bull run. We're seeing all-time highs in the market in early to mid-February. And all of a sudden, we hit an all-time high on February 19th, and news starts to come out about the intense spread of what at the time was just still called the coronavirus or the novel coronavirus, would yet to be named COVID-19. And this is where this slingshot setup started to occur, okay? So just a couple days after the market starts to turn over from that all-time high, you can see we're in a very low volatile market conditions. And we know that because the bands on the very left side of the chart there are horizontal and close together. That tells us volatility is low. And it also tells us that there's a very high chance of a volatility expansion sometime in the future. We don't know when it is, although I'm going to tell you exactly how to determine when it's likely to be. And what often ends up happening here, going back to the psychology curve, is there's a little bit of a retracement. People think, oh, this is a great way to get back in on a trade in the context of this broader uptrend that we've been in for so long. I'm afraid of missing out. I don't want to miss out on any more profits. Maybe I already missed a bunch of profits over the last couple of years. Now's the time to get in. Actually, no, now is the time to be worried. As price starts to hug this lower band, it's telling us there's a volatility expansion and it's likely to the downside. That's where the slingshot starts to get pulled back. And then as price sells off, we want to start taking a contrarian approach and looking for entry points to get back in the market. And people often ask me, Jeff, after such an extreme sell-off and these fundamental weaknesses that exist in the market due to COVID-19 with the governmental shutdowns and private sector shutdowns, how in the heck are we back at all-time highs in the market? Well, I'm going to answer that with a very simple couple word phrase. It's fear and greed. That's really what drives the markets. Fundamentals and technicals will drive the markets for short periods of time. But ultimately, it's psychology, it's fear and greed that drives prices lower and pushes prices higher. And if you think about it, that's why sell-offs are so much more extreme than uptrends, because when people panic, they panic big. When people get optimistic, they kind of slowly and gradually get optimistic. So that's really the psychology behind it. But this is where we want to be buying on the slingshot setup when most other traders are panicking and selling. And now here's the really cool part about this setup. And again, ties into how are we back up to these levels in the market? And actually, I took this screenshot months ago before we're even now at new all-time highs. But what happens is the security returns right back to the level where the volatility expansion initiated. So see that? That's where on the left side of the chart where the volatility expansion started, the sell-off ensues, prices get driven back up because large institutions, hedge funds, etc., know that these are good buying zones in the market. And so they're basically taking the opposite side of all of the retail traders who are panicking and unloading positions and taking losses, and they're coming in and buying only to drive prices back up to where the volatility expansion took place, and the slingshot is now back at its resting point. Okay, let's look at another example. I often get asked, Jeff, does this work on individual securities? Absolutely. This is a stock chart of Apple. It's a daily chart. I've got the Bollinger Bands plotted, and you'll see we're in this very nice uptrend on the left half of your chart. Okay, again, this is where people are getting greedy, exuberant, maybe fear of missing out, and we get a nice little pullback to the lower band. Remember that first technique I showed you, that probably one of the most common ways the Bollinger Bands are used, people are going to come in and buy. In fact, there was a nice little bullish reversal candle off that lower band there in the middle of the chart. So this is what's going to trap people. Rather than trade that, I wait for the volatility expansion. And we see that occur right here. Price sells off and people panic and lose money. And this is where someone like me in my hedge fund would come in and start buying up shares. And I'll talk about some techniques to do that. And then as price returns back to the initial volatility breakout, I start to look at scaling out of positions or taking profits. Okay, that's the slingshot. Here's another example. This is the QQQ, NASDAQ ETF. You see we are in a low volatility expansion volatility environment on the left side of your chart. Then we get the volatility expansion. This is where price starts to hug the curve. This is where I get fearful and start to sell if I'm in any long positions. And then I wait for the sell-off and come in and buy, knowing that price is going to return right back up to where the volatility breakout occurred. See that? Over and over again, it happens. I often get asked, does it work on an intraday chart? Absolutely. This is a 5-minute chart of advanced micro devices, AMD. We're in a ranging sideways market. For those people who trade the Bollinger Bands and are buying at the bottom band and selling at the top band, it worked pretty nicely. They had a few nice trades. Unfortunately, if they did it right here, they got wiped out. All their profits are gone, and this is where I would have been selling. This is where I come in and buy. This is where I come in and start scaling out and taking profits. There's the slingshot setup. So the big question is, how do we identify the buy zone? That's really the million-dollar question, right? It's very easy to see where the volatility breakout is going and then know where the price is going to return to. And there's a lot of ways to do this. And based on our limited time today, I don't have, you know, the ability to get into all the nuances of how to get in on the reversal, but I am going to give you some really good tricks and a tool that will help you very accurately get in near the bottom here in a bit. But really the trick is to identify when the band is overextended and ready to snap back. So we can do that in a number of ways. We can use bullish reversal candles. We can wait for price to trade back up in the band, in between the lower and middle band. We can be a little bit more conservative and wait for you know, a percentage return into the zone up into the middle band. There's a lot of different ways we can use to determine this. And then another more of a money management trick that I use is to scale in, because we know that there's going to be a return to the breaking point. So with that knowledge in mind, that's a, you know, powerful information to have. We can confidently scale in into the position to dollar cost average down our entry price to get in on a rebound. So there's a lot of ways, both money management and technical. I'm going to give you a better way here in a minute, so stay tuned. But those are some of the ways you can use to determine that buy zone. So what I've done is I've spent more than 10 years and thousands of hours trying to determine when momentum is shifting and a new trend is starting in the context of this slingshot setup. I wanted a tool that could really get me in near the bottom of these sell-offs and buy low and sell high. And once I got this formula dialed in, I then had to configure it to work on all time frames and duplicate the success across all markets, because I trade a lot of markets. I trade options, futures, equities, ETFs, and that's really the challenge. Most things out there only work on very specific markets. And then I had to make it an adaptable algorithmic formula that can reliably predict market trends and actually adapt to market conditions. You know, when volatility changes, when trends change, etc., it has to be able to read that. And the result of all this is a tool that it really provides accurate buy and sell signals near the outer channels of the Bollinger Bands. And the unique thing about this tool that I've developed is it does so up to 3 candles in advance of the move. So it gives you up to 3 candles of advanced warning. So if you're trading off a daily chart, that's up to 3 days of advanced warning, knowing an exact entry price and direction before the move actually occurs. And I've developed this into an algorithm. And so ultimately, when you combine the right formulation of momentum indicators, volatility studies, and price action setups, you can accurately identify buy and sell signals at the outer bands of the Bollinger Bands. So not just for the buy zone in the context of a sell-off, but it can also help warn you of a sell-off as price starts to hug the lower band. And I packaged this into a special software called TradeTrind. And what TradeTrind does is it gives you accurate buy and sell signals at the bottom of the slingshot. It also gives you accurate sell warning signals before the slingshot setup takes place. And it does it with a proprietary blend of momentum indicators that can warn of sell-offs and rebounds with short-term and long-term trends. And it works on any market in any time frame. All right, so whether you're trade stocks, futures, Forex, options, this can be applied to any market in any time frame. It also allows you to back test. So all of our buy and sell signals get posted to the chart and stay there. So you can go back and look at all the previous signals to see how they work in these types of conditions. We have a lot of members who use this to supercharge their option strategy. So this is a really great tool for more accurately identifying entry points for your options trades. All right, and ultimately what it does, and we have people of all skill levels that use this, that are brand new to very seasoned pros, and I even use it myself in my own trading account as well as in my hedge fund. Okay, so it definitely eliminates the guesswork and the trading psychology and emotional drawback that we experience as traders and investors. All right, and I mentioned earlier in the session that I was going to throw in a little extra trick for you to help eliminate a lot of your bad trades. So I'll throw that in there right now because this is actually something we programmed into the TradeTrind signal software to use a very specific type of order to confirm momentum direction. And those are buy stop and sell stop orders. So almost all the trades that I enter in my hedge fund and in my personal trading account, I enter with a buy stop or a sell stop limit order, right? So rather than just using a market order or a standard limit order, this is what I use. And I use a buy stop to enter long trades and a sell stop to enter short trades. And what this does, and it really works with virtually any indicator, not just the Bollinger Bands or my trade trend signals, but it helps filter out false signals to improve consistency and increase the profitability of a system. So what we do is we put a buy stop order above the high of the candle of a long a signal or a buy signal, and we use a sell stop limit order below the low of the candle of a short signal. Okay, so if there's no follow through, no harm, no foul, we don't get into the trade and we move on and wait for the next signal. If there is follow through, it's a great entry technique because it pretty much puts you in immediate profits when you get follow through on the momentum. All right, and who doesn't like to start out a trade in profitable territory? So this is a great way to help eliminate a lot of false signals and losing trades. Now, I often get asked, and again, by the way, we have that program in a trade trend. So trade trend will give you the exact buy stop and sell stop limit orders for every signal. So there's no guesswork on the entry price. It'll say, enter XYZ stock at $100 per share, and signal is good for up to 3 candles, right? So it gives it to you in advance. You don't have to jump in with a market order at the time. So I often get asked, Jeff, how did you do in the recent Corona crash using trade trend? Well, I was very cautious back in February and March because I saw this pandemic developing, and I went to a lot of cash. So I had a small amount of capital at play out of an abundance of caution, but I still did pretty well using trade trend. And this is a screenshot of my TD Ameritrade real money brokerage statement from back in February at the end of the month. So that month I did a little over $13,000 using the trade trend signals. And then in March, as the sell-off ensued, so this is where the slingshot setup, guys, I was watching this very closely. I knew what was going to happen with the slingshot setup. So I got more aggressive and I started to short the market. And then I was going to come in and buy big on the rebound, which I did. So this is my statement from the end of March. And you can see that I made over $27,000 that month. So all in all, during the Corona crash, I made over $40,000 in profits, being very, very conservative, just using simple buy and sell signals from trade trend combined with the slingshot setup. Okay, so that's real money proof of how that works. And here's some more examples. And this is kind of what you get when you check out trade trend, which I'll tell you how you can do here in just a minute. You get the simple buy and sell, the red arrow for sell, buy arrow, or green arrow for buy, and you get it in advance of the warning. So you can see the dot is where the trade actually triggers. The arrow is simply the warning. Okay, and this is an example of 4 trades where if you bought call or put options on these signals, the gains were over 1,600%. Turning every $2,000 invested in over $43,000. This is an example of Bank of America and our buy and sell signals on Bank of America back in September, November, December of last year. And you can see we had a number of buy and sell signals there that resulted in over 1,900% gains buying calls and puts on these signals. And this one's of CMG, Chipotle Mexican, back in April and May. We had 4 nice buy signals there that all 4 of those triggered. As you can see with the dot, they hit the suggested entry price, resulting in gains on call and put options of over 2,100%. All right, so the cool thing about trade trend is it works in any market, in any time frame, and any size account. You can simply adjust your position size accordingly and take the signals. And trade trend provides predictive buy and sell signals before the move occurs up to 3 candles in advance. And this is really what sets it apart from other signal softwares out there. So if you've used another signal software in the past, most likely you have to jump in when you get the buy signal or the sell signal. With trade trend, up to 3 candles in advance your entry price. So if you're trading on an hourly chart intraday and you get a buy signal, you know that up to 3 hours in advance what your entry price is, which direction you're going, and if it doesn't trigger, then we move on, cancel the order. If it does, trade trend also gives you the trailing stop levels as each candle prints. So not only does it tell you when to get in and when to get out, it tells you how to manage your risk as the trade plays out. Okay, and not only that, it's predicted every market crash and rebound in the history of the market with 100% accuracy. I realize that's a bold claim, but you can go back and verify this for yourself on the trade trend charts and find the sell signals as they occurred with all of these major crashes, corrections, black swan events, etc. All right, so let's look at examples of that. This is the flash crash of August 2015. There's that familiar volatility, contraction, sideways moving, ranging market on the S&P 500. This is where traders who are using the Bollinger Bands are buying at the bottom band, selling at the top band, doing okay for a couple months. Until trade trend flashes the sell warning, we get the slingshot set up, the market sells off, and not only that, trade trend gave us a nice buy signal off the bottom of the slingshot setup before the market rebound to the resting point. Here's another example going back over a decade ago to the 2008 mortgage crisis. Kind of similar situation on the left side of your chart. Trade trend flashes a sell warning right here on May 21st. And the market loses more than half of its value over the coming months. And then trade trend gives us a nice buy signal as the market starts to bottom out and then rebound, and the slingshot setup plays out. We'll go back now 20 years to the 2000 bubble. All right, so same thing. We're in this nice upward bull run. All these .com companies are going gangbusters, and then the bubble bursts and the market comes crashing down. There's the sell warning from trade trend. The market tanks, and we get a nice buy warning off the bottom before the market rebounds. All right, so virtually every system, guys, will produce winning trades. And I just showed you some examples of winning trades from trade trend. The problem is they don't keep you out of the market when conditions are not favorable, and you end up giving back your profits on the losing trades until now. All right, so this is real money proof, again, for my TD Ameritrade account using the trade trend signal software of what's possible. I mentioned I also trade futures. So here are some futures trades, and they're not all winners, guys. Trade trend doesn't have 100% winning trades. But the nice thing is you can see here from my screenshots that the losing trades tend to be fairly contained and small, and it helps you let your profitable trades run, as you can see from my profitable trades here, where I was able to make over $8,000 in a single day, over $6,500 in a single day, over $6,000 in a single day, and over $5,400 in a single day. This is more recent. That was from back in 2018. I took those because the that year we had 4 major market corrections. So I took those as an example of what's possible during really volatile market conditions. But now we've had even more volatile market conditions. So this was last week, guys. I made over $28,000 in a single day using the trade trend signals. And this is actually from this morning. I just took this right before our session. I've made over $13,000 this morning using trade trend, guys. So you can see I have over $152,000 of real money profits open right now on 3 positions using the trade trend signals. All right, so this is real money proof. This is, again, an example of my real money account, but this is actually my hedge fund. So again, I mentioned I manage a hedge fund, and we're not using this as an endorsement or invitation to join my fund, but I just want to share what we did in August, so just this last month in the hedge fund. Returns of nearly 6.5% on capital for our Altos Capital investors, guys. And this is really all possible using the tool that I've showed you, trade trend, and the slingshot setup, okay? So here's my promise to you guys for joining us today. I want to help you guys have days just like these, and I'm going to give you access to a tool that lets you copy my trades. All right, so this is a one-time opportunity. We only share this on special events like our session today, and I want you to join me to discover how I make consistent income in the markets day after day, week after week. All right, and I'm going to reveal every one of my special techniques and indicators that make profits like this possible. So in other words, you get exact access to everything that I use in my own personal trading account, okay, with absolutely nothing held back. So here's everything you get for being on our session today. We're going to give access to 12 months of trade trend for stocks, futures, and Forex. And again, it gives you exact entry and exit signals. We also hold live interactive trade sessions a few times a month, and I host those myself with my partner, Richard. So I'm there for you to answer questions. I don't, put one of my other employees on there to run it. It's me, myself, and I'm there to help you be successful and hold your hand. We also give you members area access for replays and recorded training sessions. So if you're not able to attend any of our live events, they're all recorded and posted in the members area. In fact, when you join today, you'll have immediate access to the members area to see over 40 hours of recorded content of all of our training. And on those training sessions, we go over different strategies, options, futures, Forex, using the trade trend signal software. Again, you get full support and personal coaching from me on these live sessions. We also teach you trade adjustments to fix losing trades. So if you're an options trader, we have a whole arsenal of adjustment techniques in our toolbox that we use to fix losing options trades. We are going to share those with you as well. I'm also going to give you a list of my most profitable tickers to trade in our trade sessions. So again, here's everything you get with the trade trend signal software to help you buy low and sell high in the market in any time frame, in any and with any type of strategy. All right. And ultimately you can trade like a pro without any guesswork. That's why we developed this, to cut the learning curve and help you be successful tomorrow, not 10 years from now, like it took me, to finally become consistently profitable. So I want you guys to ask yourself, if you're able to avoid the next major market crash and even make money from it, how much would that be worth to you? And if you were able to buy low and sell high and even beat the pros, how much would that be worth to you? And I really am confident you guys could beat a lot of the professional money managers out there using this slingshot setup with the trade trend signals. In fact, I just saw David Einhorn. He's the one of the top hedge fund managers in the world that runs Greenlight Capital. I just saw on Bloomberg this morning, they posted his results from August across all of his hedge funds. He only made 0.5% in August. Guys, you can beat these guys. And I just showed you how I beat them in August with nearly a 6.5% return on my hedge fund. All right. So finally, if you had an experienced coach guide you down the path to success, ask yourself, how much would that be worth to you? Really, to me, if I were to answer that question 10 years ago, I would have said priceless. And I would have done anything it could take to get to where I am right now in much quicker time. So what we've done to help you do that is we put together a special package called Trading the Moment Trader Special, just for the session today that you guys are on. And again, this is everything that it includes. You get 12 months of trade trend signals, and we do charge $14.99 for an annual subscription for that. So that's a $1,499 value. You also get access to our live trade sessions that we hold several times a month. That's a retail price of $550. I'm also going to be coaching you guys on these trade sessions. Personal coaching for me runs $19.97. And we're going to give you exclusive invitation-only Facebook group access. That's a $199 value. We have around 800 members in our Facebook group that trade our strategies and use the trade trend software. So you'll be able to interact with all of those members today when you join. We're also going to teach you to fix losing options trades. Again, as I mentioned, we have a whole arsenal of tricks. We're going to share those with you, and that's valued at $900. But ultimately, you're going to learn to trade any market in any time frame with consistency, and surely that's priceless. Now I'm going to throw in a couple bonuses if you decide to claim one of the seats today. Bonus number one is my online course, How to Win 97% of Your Options Trades. We actually run an alert service on this, and we've actually won about 99% of our trades going back 5 years using the trade adjustments that we teach. So we win about 85% of those on the initial profit target, and we adjust about 15% of them. That's a $595 value. You get that for free. And then we're going to throw in a second bonus, How to Create Risk-Free Trades. This is one of my new ebooks, and it's a really cool money management technique I use in my own personal trading account and my hedge fund to mitigate risk and sometimes even eliminate risk in a trade. It's a really cool trick. We're throwing that in for free too, $97 value. So what we've done is we bundled up all of this stuff, put it into the Trading the Moment Trader Special package, and all of it individually, bought retail off our websites, over $5,000. We're taking 80% off the price just for the session today. So once we're done with the session, this deal will go away. We'll keep it open for about 30 minutes after the session or until all the seats fill up, whichever comes first. So we are limiting this to 25 seats. And this is not a marketing tactic. We actually limit the seating because of what you see here on your screen. You're getting personal coaching from me in our live trade sessions. I can only take on so many new members. There's only one of me. And so we have to limit it so that I can make sure to be fair to everybody and give everyone the attention they deserve. So this is limited to 25 seats. And now I'm going to reveal how you can take advantage of one of these spots. All right. So all you have to do is go to tradetrendnow.com. and you can claim one of the 25 seats. Again, as soon as they're gone, they're gone. We're not gonna allow anyone else in. So I hope you see the value in what I'm offering you guys today and you take advantage of it. Now I'm gonna get to Q&A here in just a second as we're getting close to running out of time. I'm gonna knock one question out first that virtually always comes up. So we'll get that out of the way. What platforms is TradeTrend available on? So it's available on a number of charting platforms and broker platforms. We have it on Wealth Charts, which is Rob Hoffman's web-based charting platform. It's a great platform. I use it myself, and we do have TradeTrend available on that platform. It's also available on another web-based charting platform, TradingView. It's available on the downloadable charting platform, Metastock, which is also a really great platform that I use myself. And then we've got it on a few broker platforms, NinjaTrader, Thinkorswim, and TradeStation. So if you're using a broker that's not listed here, let's say you're using, Schwab or IBKR or one of those, a lot of those we can't develop indicators for. So what we do and what we suggest is to get the signals off of a web-based charting platform like Wealth Charts or TradingView. And remember, you get the signals up to 3 candles in advance. So it's not like you got to scramble to get your order in immediately. You've got up to 3 candles to get your order in. And so the best thing to do is just to get the suggested entry price off the charting platform and then just toggle over to your broker and enter the order. It's really the easiest way to do it. All right, and again, I'm throwing in a couple bonuses on top of this package. So if you get one of your 25 seats, you're going to get both bonuses. This is my course that has actually now over 10,000 students enrolled with 4.5 star, over 1,200 4.5 star ratings. And then you're also going to get my ebook, How to Create Risk-Free Trades. All right, so I'm going to open it up to Q&A here in just a second. As we're getting the Q&A box open, I think Raleigh's going to relay some questions to me. I'll share a few testimonials from our trade trend users. Jay Thomas has very impressive results. Well done. Thanks for helping us little guys with small accounts who dream of growing our accounts over time and reaping the benefits of consistent monthly income. This is one from R. Julian that I got recently. He's one of our newer trade trend members. He said, this is an excellent indicator. So far, I've made $11,230. One of the most powerful indicators I've used. I use this indicator for my Great British Pound pairs on Forex and Bitcoin. I recommend this indicator for anyone who's serious about winning trades and making consistent money. Frank says, how refreshing to have someone produce a product that does what it says. I thought it was too good to be true at first, but you proved me wrong. Thanks, and keep up the good work. This is one of my favorite testimonials of all time because it's from one of my coaching students, Brian C. And he sent me this earlier this year. He was struggling last year, and I helped him get involved with trade trend and use it in the futures markets, which is what he was interested in trading. But last year he said he was down around $42,000. Guys, he was in the whole 42 grand, but he says that he's now happy to report that he's recouped all those losses and is now net positive over 47,000 on trade trend trades. All right, so the system produced almost $90,000 of profits in only 90 days for Brian. All right, so if that's not proof of how well this works, I don't know what it is. But he says the system itself would have actually generated even higher returns if not for mistakes on his part. And Brian's working on that psychology component that we talked about early in our session. He says he's very thankful to the good Lord for for leading him to our system. And lastly, Alan says, I've been involved with lots of software testing. Alan was one of our early beta testers. He says TradeTrend does exactly as it says, and I found some nice setups. Again, guys, go to TradeTrendNow.com. It only takes one winning trade, as you've seen, to pay for your membership to my Trade Trend Mastermind group. Really buying low and selling high is priceless, guys. All right, and I'm going to throw in a guarantee here real quick as we get into Q&A. If you guys don't make money in the first 90 days using this tool, I will give you an extra year of Trade Trend. Remember, that's a $1,499 value at no cost whatsoever on the house out of my pocket. Okay, so TradeTrendNow.com. Looks like the seats are filling up pretty fast. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A. We've got about 8 minutes left. If I don't get to all the questions, then feel free to email us, support@altostrading.com, and I will, myself or one of my team members will make sure to get back to you by the end of the day today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Raleigh for questions. Again, here's everything you guys get on my screen. TradeTrendNow.com. Seats are going fast. Raleigh, I'll let you take it off. I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Raleigh.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me now?
Now I got you.
Okay, good. Hey, listen, great presentation. And there were several questions that came flying in there, and I want to kind of group some of those. So, Jeff, just straight up question. We have a number of people here that trade Forex, and I want to know, will this work in Forex markets?
Yes. Yep. We've designed this to give buy and sell signals as well as trailing stops in all markets. So it can be used in Forex, futures, equities, ETFs, you name it. I see a question from Bill. What signals your exit order? I'm just going to pull that one out because it's important. Bill, so what TradeTrend does is it's an algorithm that gauges market trend strength and momentum strength. So as momentum remains strong, it gives you a wider trailing stop. And then as momentum starts to slow down or trend starts to reverse, it tightens up your stop to help protect your profits in your trade. And it's actually exited on a trailing stop. So good question. Back to you, Raleigh.
Okay, yeah, and just along the same lines, because you say all markets, the gentleman just typed in and said, does it work in the Indian stock market?
Yeah, we have, so as long as you have data and it's on your platform, absolutely. We actually have a lot of students in India that use TradeTrend. The ones I'm more familiar with use it on Metastock because I know Metastock has access to that the international markets. But certainly, if you have a platform that you can get data from the Indian markets. Absolutely.
Okay. Another question here. How often will the live trade sessions and what days, times are they held in? So how often do you do them and what time of the day do you hold those?
Yeah, so we generally do them every other week. But we don't set hard dates and times for this reason, because we try to time our sessions with important market events. So we kind of are flexible about them, but we give you generally 48 hours notice before the live event, so you have enough time to plan for it. And if for some reason you know, like if there's like a major announcement, like we'll probably strategically plan a session around the election. You know, if there's a major like FOMC announcement, we'll plan it around that. So we try to make it relevant to the current market conditions. So for that reason, we don't just hold an arbitrary date and time that's planned too far ahead of time. Cool Card says, do we own the indicators? Yeah, you get 12 months of the indicator for the 80% off package. You get everything on your screen as a lifetime package. The only thing that you would renew would be the trade trend signals. If you want to renew those after 12 months, you're locked in or grandfathered in at $9.97. You'll never pay the $14.99.
All right. So some additional questions here. Oh, a couple of people typed in that they're having difficulty using PayPal, Jeff.
Yeah, we're getting hit hard now. Our site's taking on a lot of traffic at the moment. That's probably what's happening. Sometimes the PayPal servers will get bogged down when a bunch of people try to go to them at one time.
I got you.
Just keep trying, guys. I just checked it. Everything should be working fine. Yeah, we are an SSL site, secure site, Dan. I'm not sure why you'd be getting that message, but we do have an SSL certificate on TradeTrend.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have a phone number, toll-free number, Dan. It's 800-895-9348. You can just find that on our website at altostrading.com. Yeah, Carlos, one-time payment for this package. The only thing that you would renew if you decide you want to renew after the year would be the trade trend signals. But you get lifetime access to all of our live trade sessions, coaching from me on the sessions. You get our invitation-only Facebook group access. You get you get to keep the bonuses that you see there on your screen. You get all of our training with trade adjustments to fix losing trades. That's all yours to keep.
All right, folks, we have any more questions coming in here? Does this work for any specific platform? I think you've kind of covered that.
Yeah. Just to recap, I know I had to go through some of this stuff pretty fast, so no problem there. Yeah, so the web-based platforms, charting platforms, are Wealth Charts and TradingView. Oh, and I guess I should just mention, when you sign up, when you claim your seat, you're going to get a welcome email, and it's going to lead you to a page to select your platform. So it'll all be on there when you join, and then basically that will get sent over to us, and we'll go ahead and start activating licenses for the software. Now, again, that's Wealth Charts, TradingView, web-based, Metastock. That's a downloadable charting platform. And then if you want it on a broker platform, if you trade with NinjaTrader, TradeStation, or Thinkorswim, you can get those signals directly on your broker platform. Yeah, so give us, we have a lot of people to get set up today. So give us till the end of the day to get everyone set up and activated. And if you need any help, give us a call at our toll-free number. One of us will help get you all set up. So really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys. If I didn't get to any questions, shoot us an email and one of our team members will get right back to you. Again, tradetrendnow.com. We've got just a couple seats left. So please don't wait. We're going to close it down here in just a minute.
That sounds great. And Jeff, once again, thank you so much for your time today. Great presentation, awesome system. And from my perspective, I've always been, I currently am a big user and believer in the Bollinger Band, and I like what you said about it being one of the few forward-looking indicators that you're aware of. And I really thought it was cool the way you walk people through how you leverage that and how you built that out to the offering that you have. So excellent job, folks. Trade Trend Wealth Package, he's got here a couple seats that are still left. Covers stocks, options, futures, Forex markets, lifetime private coaching, video library access, even a satisfaction performance guarantee there. So go to tradetrend.now, a couple of seats left. Jeff, thank you so much. And I do want to remind everybody that every presentation is being recorded.